Well, Lisa, thank you so much for being here with us today. I do appreciate a couple of minutes and a lot to talk about here. But I want to start right off the bat with, why did you ultimately make this decision to run for city council here in the 15th district and run for this spot?
Well, I had been living in the Bronx for about 10 years and working for elected officials and sort of seeing the inner workings of government from behind the scenes, and thought it's time for people like me to step up and run for office. I truly believe that it's going to take a new generation of bold, progressive leaders to bring systemic change to the city of New York. And I think those of us who are closest to the struggle should be the closest to the decision-making table.
You've been asked it before, but your thoughts on potentially being the first openly transgender lawmaker here in New York City and in New York State. What are your thoughts on that?
Obviously, it's historic, but it's less about me and my identity. It's more about the struggles that the people of the 15th City Council District face every day, people in the borough of the Bronx and in the city of New York in general. I do imagine that there are a lot of people who are excited. The Bronx is a very diverse borough with people from all walks of life, all gender identities, sexual orientations, races, natural countries of origin. And so I'm sure people who have never saw themselves reflected in candidates and potential elected officials are excited by that. And we hope that they come out and vote. But I always want to center the fact that I'm running to represent everyone, all 165,000 plus people in this district, whether they support me or not. I'm here to fight for all of them.
And Elisa, you recently, just, a month or two ago came into the spotlight, obviously, with what happened with the New York Post and them bringing up your past in a way that was the way that they did. Is it fair that that comes up and that's been a focus in some of the coverage of your campaign to this point?
Well, I would say this: there are absolutely barriers to employment for many historically marginalized people in New York City. In one of the richest cities in the country, many people still face challenges when it comes to finding employment. And many groups are no exception to that, including LGBTQ, formerly incarcerated, and homeless folks. I've always been transparent about who I am. And, that's the struggle that gives me the lived experience to understand what it's like to go from having to hustle to survive and take the best options that I had at that time, and to turn my life around for the better and to be where I am today is not insignificant.
Elisa, how does your past experience, and I'm talking simply from the point of whether as education liaison for the Bronx Borough President or professional experience otherwise, qualify you for this position and make you the best choice for the people of the 15th district when they make this vote?
Well, I'm a fighter. I've had to fight all my life to be taken seriously, to be accepted in places and spaces. And I'm not afraid to go up against leadership. I know how to cultivate strong relationships. I know how to negotiate. I know how to get things done. And I think that, we have to look past political experience. What has political experience really gained us, right? I think folks in the Bronx and in the city of New York in general have to start looking at those who have big, bold ideas and who have the political courage to champion legislation that is going to transform people's lives, particularly working class people and immigrant populations and low-income communities of color.
In your opinion, there are so many issues facing the people of the district right now, but in your opinion, what is the biggest issue right now that's facing them that needs to be addressed almost immediately?
Unequivocally, it's workforce development, addressing Great Depression levels of unemployment. The 15th Council District has pockets where the unemployment rate is as high as 25%, places like East Tremont and West Farms, and putting people back to work, creating a public option for employment, which is for targeted vulnerable populations, those who have historically been shut out from the private sector, homeless people, seniors, people with disabilities, LGBTQ at-risk youth. We need to create pathways and pipelines for them into city service jobs that come with all of the benefits of organized labor, that come with pensions and healthcare. That's how you move people away from generational poverty towards generational wealth. And particularly, we have to be stronger on youth development. And I would be very excited to see, and something I'd be pushing for strongly, is a universal year-round youth employment program, similar to the summer youth employment program, but something that's year-round, because young people in the Bronx in particular have had their futures pulled from underneath their feet. 25% of young people in the Bronx are out of work and out of school. And we have to do more. It's up to us as policymakers to fight for the future, the next generation of Bronxites, for their future.
And Elisa, if you were elected, you'd be thrown right into the middle of this issue that we're dealing with right now, which is the pandemic, but even on a more specific level, this vaccine rollout and making sure that people get vaccinated and that the vaccine is accessible to people in the district. What are your thoughts on the rollout to this point, and what would you work to do differently?
Well, language justice is important. We've seen instances where folks have not been able to communicate with people who are administering vaccines, and that's unacceptable in a city like New York and a borough like the Bronx, where many people speak multiple languages. We also have to, many of us feel as though a lot of energy was put behind getting out the census, and we need to have the same sort of sense of urgency around educating people in our communities about the vaccine, dispelling myths, letting people know who are eligible, that they are, and where to get it, and meeting people where they are. I feel strongly that we should have ambassadors, people from the contact tracing organization, Department of Health, New York City Health and Hospitals should be sending people out to meet people where they are, whether it be in public housing, whether it be in schools, hospitals, places of faith. We have to meet people where they are. And there are organizations, nonprofits that are doing the work that our city government should be doing, going door to door, signing people up to take their vaccine. I also think that we need more Yankee Stadium models. One of the issues we're having is that there are people coming from outside of the city, coming and getting vaccines here in the city. And, the Yankee Stadium model was for Bronxites only. So we need to do more of that. Kingsbridge Armory can be utilized. There are other spaces that we can utilize to do mass vaccination sites.
Elisa, something that you've spoken about is you feel that New Yorkers deserve guaranteed, housing, jobs, access to education. That these should be things that all New Yorkers have access to. Why do you feel that way, and how do you make that happen?
Well, I think those are the ingredients to a dignified life. One of the things we don't have in America are economic rights. We have civil rights, but we don't have economic rights. And we need to have not just a right to shelter, but a right to housing. The only way that you address the homelessness crisis in New York City is by putting forward long-term solutions, building social housing, supportive housing, return of the single room occupancy, which has been demonized over the past couple of decades, and putting people in stable, permanent housing. I think people should have a right to housing. And I think that the way you give people a right to employment is by passing a public option for employment. And we have to work with labor, and they have to have a seat at the table, and we have to sit down and figure out what this looks like. But there are other major cities across America that have targeted hiring programs, and we absolutely can do it. We shouldn't be behind when it comes to these innovative solutions. And the same with education. Folks have a right to K through 12, but we don't have a right to public higher education, which is very important. And not just public higher education, because college is not for everyone. This is a district where slightly more than a third of people have less than a high school education. College is not for everyone. We need to invest more in apprenticeships and vocational training. And, just because you don't have a college education, shouldn't mean that you work low wage jobs for the rest of your life. And so we have to give people economic rights to housing, rights to education, past high school, if that's what they so choose, and absolutely a right to employment.
And to that point, you're talking about, making sure that people have jobs and people are making a good wage and having enough money to then afford where they live. And that's obviously something that comes up a ton, is the affordability of housing here in the district. And if there is truly affordable housing, or new housing is truly affordable when it's built, how do you ensure that people who live here can afford to continue staying and living here?
Well, there are multiple ways. I mean, the mandatory inclusionary housing program that we have is not working, right? We know that it's not delivering as many units as it was promised to deliver. And I think that mainly it's because the rezonings have been in low-income communities of color, where housing markets tend to be weaker. I think that the options are not affordable. Anything with the AMI that is over 40% is not affordable for Bronxites. And so we absolutely have to work with the Department of Housing and Urban Development on a federal level to sort of reformulate that AMI, the way that we calculate AMI, which for New York City incorporates Putnam and Rockland County, where folks are making far more money than those in the Bronx. And so if we can get AMI to be more reflective of a smaller geographical location, I think that would work wonders. But we also have to move away from the commodification of housing. I think we have to invest more in community land trusts to put collective ownership back into the hands of the people. We absolutely need to invest more in social housing. The state needs to fulfill its promise to build social housing. And we need to work with mission-driven nonprofit organizations who want to build supportive housing for the most vulnerable New Yorkers. And Albany, we have to work with Albany to pass what they call accessory dwelling units, which is being able to convert attics and garages and basements into apartments, which actually benefit small homeowners and not wealthy real estate developers.
In addition to that, we've seen a push over the last couple of years for more green initiatives and for more issues involving the environment and helping out here. It's not just building buildings here in the Bronx. You obviously want to, improve
Right.
the area and improve things environmentally as well. What would you like to do on that front?
I think that we have to make our streets more pedestrian friendly. Obviously, building more green space, building more bike lanes, making sure that they're protected with actual physical posts, connecting more bike lanes, building more parking spaces for bike lanes, building more bus-only lanes so that folks can actually have an incentive to get on the bus and get from point A to point B. We know that bus ridership is down, and I think mainly it's because it's a dreadful commute when you're on the bus and there's just tons of congestion. Obviously, working with the new transportation secretary to pass congestion pricing is going to be important, but we have to create, an outdoors that is friendly to pedestrians and that incentivizes people to use alternatives to transportation. And that includes obviously making sure that our buses are electric and moving away from fossil fuel emitting gas.
Lisa, I want to switch gears real quick to public safety, because this has been an issue that's come up in the past. Obviously, where do you stand on police reform and the role of the NYPD on public safety here in the district?
So I think that we ask the police to do too much stuff that they're not trained to be doing. I think we have to invest more in low-income communities of color, invest in workforce development, invest in young people, youth development. I strongly believe that a lot of the crime that exists is poverty related. And every major study shows us that if we invest in people and if we dismantle and tackle and end poverty, that crime will reduce. I also think we have to have more young people on precinct councils to create better relationships between local law enforcement and young people in our inner cities. I would like to see an elected and independent civilian complaint review board that has the authority to initiate investigations and take disciplinary actions when necessary. But we understand that there is a rise in particularly gun violence, and strict gun laws are going to be important. The federal government has to renew the ban on assault rifles. We have to be more innovative about gun buybacks. I think if you want to get guns off the street, you got to offer more than $200, in a gift card. And ultimately, I think the best people to help cure violence are the folks who have been directly impacted. Those folks who have been involved, justice system involved, who have returned to society, who are now positive role models, are the best people to sort of mentor and talk to young people. Anti-violence organizations like Save Our Streets, Bronx Rising Against Gun Violence. These are the organizations that we have to invest in, because I think that they are the most suited and the best fitted to help create safer streets and safer environments in the Bronx.
Elisa, I think a lot of times when we go through all the issues that are faced that a candidate wants to address, sometimes it comes off like we just talk about everything that's wrong, with the district. But there's got to be something that about the district and the people in the district that really touches you, that makes you want to lead them and be their representative in city council. What is that for you?
I mean, the district is filled with strong, hardworking mothers who make ends meet, who are some of the best organizers who've been fighting to make the Bronx what it is today. Bronx natives who have been here since what they call the Bronx was burning. But the Bronx is no longer burning. Our passion is burning now. And, the Bronx is one of the most diverse places. We have bustling business corridors, places like Arthur Avenue, Little Italy, that have, been able to sort of survive through the pandemic. Obviously we're struggling with the closure of indoor dining, but it's a place where I visit not too far from where I am, and it just has, it's an example for the rest of the city on how to be a diverse, bustling business corridor. Obviously, that we're very fortunate to have some cultural richness here, like the Bronx Zoo, the Botanical Garden. And so there are a lot of, the Bronx River runs through the district, the only borough in the city of New York with a freshwater running river, which runs right through the 15 Councilmanic district. And so just the people in the Bronx in general are just really resilient people, and they inspire me every day and give me strength.
Lisa, two more questions and I'll let you go. First one's a fun one here. Okay. Well, what is a fun fact about you? Something, whether it be a hobby or, something that you have an interest of yours, something that people don't know about you that you think they might like to know?
Well, I wanted to be a singer when I was younger. I went to performing arts high school, and I wanted to be just like the R&B singer Alicia Keys. I was a huge fan. I even took piano lessons, but that didn't last very long.
Was it the piano that was the problem, or was it what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't get it. It was just too hard for me, and I just, yeah.
All right, fair enough. Last thing for you, Lisa, there's a lot of candidates on this ballot. And, when we talk about this ballot, and obviously ranked choice voting is going to be an issue with this one because people can vote for more than one candidate. But what do you want people to remember about you and know about you and have in the back of their head when they head in to cast their vote that ensures that they make sure they fill in that bubble next to your name?
That it's time for change, that the Bronx is ready, that I'm not here because I want power. I'm not here because this is the next step in my political career. This has always been about improving the quality of life of Bronxites. And if we continue to vote for the same kinds of people, we cannot expect any change. And that the future is bright, and that I'm a fighter. I've fought all my life. I know how to get things done, and I'm serious and committed about this work.